Hey guys, welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den. Winter Wolf here with his all-time greatest movie-going compatriot, King Z. Dude, what's going on? I'm a little heated. I don't even want to let you introduce yourself. I hate it so much. But good.
Okay, as you look around, I'm in a new location. Again, we moved to a new location.
Very
just
nondescript.
for today's episode. No, actually, I'm here for pretty much the duration of
Nice.
peak.
Oh, true. This is probably the end of the line with the job transfer and all that good stuff. Good. We'll let you settle in and get your get comfortable for the next 6 weeks or however long it's going to be. So doing things a little bit different today, guys, because Winter Wolf is not thrilled with what he just saw. To get you up to speed, we're watching Andor episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. And usually where I would do the read-in with a little bit of a blurb, a little bit of synopsis, I'm just too pissed off to read it because I think this is the first time I'm going to come down real hard on this show. But fortunately, ever the optimist, King Z is going to give you the blurb. Do it, dude.
All right, here we are, episode 11 of Andor, directed by Benjamin Cameron, or Caron, C-A-R-O-N, written by Tony Gilroy himself as he writes these last two episodes. What happened is, a fugitive once more, Cassian must make his next move before it's too late, while he receives dire news.
Oh, God, dude. It's such a kick in the balls, dude. Before we even get started on breaking this one down, it's kind of a double kick in the nuts that the king of the show himself, that Tony Gilroy himself, put this on screen, because I think there's several massive breakdowns and a lot of the good stuff that they had put together. And the only way I can see out of it is if you try and convince me that this was originally a one series show that they somehow got stretched into 2 seasons, because I thought they were on pace to wrap up a lot of the story threads they had going here. And my biggest bitch with this is that there's no way they can effectively wrap up most of these threads next Wednesday. It cannot be done. There are too many B plots to get this done.
The whole purpose I see of having, well, if you can't figure out, Marva passed away in this episode. God, the daughter of Ferrix are the people who who take care of the cornerstones. They're the most important people, and Marva was considered one of the most important people on Ferrix. So she's to be honored. But this is a McGriffin. This is a McGriffin writing style, is to bring everyone together, which you see in this episode. They use this whole one plot point at the beginning, which I know you're upset about, but it's to pull everybody to one point. This way you're not jumping to 6 different planets like they did in this episode. 6 different planets in this episode.
Dude, true. Listen, I'll give them leeway. I understand the technical nature, not technical nature, the technical logic that they needed to employ that strategy as a framing device to get everybody to one place to wrap things up. I think the issue here that I'm going to go over as we go with the scene by scenes more specifically is that all of those folks that are now going to Ferrix now should have done more interesting shit for the last 3 episodes by now. And where I was willing to, I must have lost count of the pacing for those kind of B stories on the side. But I'll point out that there's 2 in particular, and we'll get to them. They're kind of obvious. It's the Vel/Cinta relationship and what each of them are doing along the way, waiting to get to this point, and Psycho Karn finally doing his thing. Like these characters have basically been thrown in the fridge, wrapped up nice and tight and Rubbermaid, and just basically kept as leftovers for not what we just watched, but for next week. And it's kind of annoying to me that for all the kind of predictions we put together running into, the middle part of the show about, oh my God, is Vel's team going to get to Andor in jail? Well, we knew once they were there and they were pursuing Andor's thing in the prison, it wasn't going to be that, they weren't doing that. But now basically they've left us where, like, the second in command on Luthen's team has been doing fuck all for 4 episodes. Like, what has she been doing except looking pretty? Which, once again, prettiest blonde in Star Wars. What has she been doing? Cinta been doing surveillance on Marva's house for however many in-story weeks it's been, months even, since it happened when
it's been months.
When Andor got locked up is basically when she deployed down to Ferrix and was surveilling his home. Where Marva was. So, okay, nothing interesting happened. She had no contacts. There was no side plot for her, nothing like that. there's also a couple of logical things that I hopefully maybe you picked up something I didn't pick up, particularly in the Luthen Saw rematch scene that comes up. I thought everything that was said in that scene was wildly out of character for Saw Gerrera. Wildly. None of it made sense to me. That happens much later. So why don't we when we get the timeline rolling, we'll catch up to that. But initial thoughts for this guy, super pissed, as you can tell. Like it seems like it all fell apart for me like real quick. But you're holding the faith. You're holding the line.
I am. One thing I can say is that they could have wrapped up the whole season at the end of episode 10.
Yep.
It would have been a perfect
a lot of people said
dead
that.
end.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on with 11 and 12, which is going to be they're rushing the 3 phases that we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. But they're doing setup and then payoff, which we will see in the episode 12. I am excited to see what they're going to do with it because one, they have to wrap up something. There has to be movement forward, but they also have to get to a new starting point, that cliffhanger that brings you in for season 2. It's always a problem with a series like this. Also with this episode, I can see what they're doing. They're pulling all the timelines together. Mm-hmm. The only reason we've only seen a little bit of each of these characters is because it's for the payoff in episode 12. And they're just reminding you who's still around. Like, you had the brief interaction, which we'll talk about with Cinta and some random guy in the bar who happens to be an ISB agent as well. So that's kind of funny. And then also with this, you're seeing Mom Mothma go back on her word, which proving that she did lie when she said, I won't even consider it. Because she's seen, but the thing is that she's seen that her daughter is actually buying into the cultural.
It was part of their religion. I think it was the religious nature of what they didn't name it, so I don't have a name to give you guys. Sorry.
Something about the braid.
Yes. That I think that was the ritual. I think that they were discussing.
And I do believe the Saw Gerrera stuff does explain itself if you actually listen to what they're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I missed a line or I missed an interpretation somewhere. So we'll talk about that part.
Went in. Because they explained it when he went in before he even saw.
When he was with the guards, when Rail was with the guards outside.
Yeah,
okay, all right. He
was with the guard. Yep.
Let's put a pin in that until we get up there then, because once again, hopefully you can bail me out. I must have had an ADHD moment with it or something. Because like I was sitting there like I don't understand. Just see, I'm jumping ahead. Let's get this episode underway, guys. Here we go.
But overall, this episode served its purpose to move forward, to give you that Matt Griffin writing plot, which brings all the stories together at the end, which we know episode 12 will go down on Ferrix.
True.
It will be one planet, unless they cut to a little bit of Mon Mothma, but it's going to be one planet, one battle.
I think that seems likely that it'll go down that way, because Mon Mothma wouldn't have a reason to be on Ferrix, but I don't think we're not going to see her not accept the gangster's deal or his terms. I think we'll see him one more time, I think.
And my final thought before we get
final opening thought.
This is what's giving Andor his reason why, because the Empire took his ability to say goodbye away.
Yeah, I mean, they could go that route and be like, I should have been here. I was in jail. I got locked up on some bullshit. But we'll do Marvel when we get there, because this is going to annoy the fuck out of me.
And I'll give you more of that as we go on too, of that thought line.
Let's get some of the other BS out of the way, because honestly, like we've been saying so far, I've rambled on it already for a bunch. We open up, and I think it's Andor and the guy from his group whose name I can't recall, but he's definitely one of the guys on the block. Excuse me, guys. The cough's a little bit back, but we're hanging. They're on the run. They've escaped Narkina 5. They made the big swim. We saw at the end of the previous episode, they ended up on the beach. They're now on the run from pursuing forces who have kind of scheduled, it looks like, aerial recon, running down prisoners, bringing people back into custody. And we see him and his partner at the beginning. They're kind of hanging on to the cliffside, like profiled against the rocks. That way they can't be observed up on the mountaintop or the plateaus. They're basically taking cover. They're in really dire straits, I'll give them that. They're clinging to the rock face. Fingers are raw and bleeding. They're barefoot and bleeding. There's a horrible opening shot on their like broken, bloodied feet where they're clinging on for grim death there. The partner says he's going to let go, and he's basically like, Andor, tell me they're leaving. Don't tell me they're leaving. He's freaking out. Not a bad setup. It kind of drops it right in the boiling water at the beginning. So I was with that.
And then you see the ship off in the background doing the search, and so you can tell that they're looking for the escaped prisoners.
No doubt.
The Empire's looking for their free labor back.
Oh, and also they're trying to run down the loose ends. That way people can't get out and report back the human rights violation, yada yada. They're not trying to have that. So it's not a bad little scene. It shows a little bit more about Andor, pulling people up with the. He tells them over and over again, like, I hear you. I know we're in some shit. But like you gotta, stay focused and hold on. Yeah, my hands aren't working either. Relax. Just gotta hold on for one more second. They're leaving. So we don't know how long they've been clinging to that rock face, but it looks like it's fairly excruciating. It was pretty gnarly done. When they get up to the top, wait, that doesn't happen yet. Let me squash that.
Nope, that doesn't happen yet.
You know what I'm talking about. Yep. Next scene is back in Marva's home, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is, I believe, some of the best acting from a computer-based I think that he's actually remote controlled, but the droid comes up big in this one.
So the rundown on the quick scene, a little like King Z, and to talk about a little bit more, is we're getting in the voiceover that basically we did all we could, but Marva has succumbed to her injuries or illness or whatever it was. She had a head injury at one point, but then she was sick and not taking meds. It's a combination of both. Could be a thing. But it's basically the Daughters of Ferrix, like one of her clubs or political affiliations she had been with in her life. They're kind of wrapping up her house kind of thing, discussing funeral arrangements and this and that. Brasso's there. They're hanging out with other people as they're kind of, picking up her belongings, and they're kind of figuring out what they're going to do with her next. But Emo Droid, B2EMO, is having himself like a crisis because Marva's gone. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that guy.
Like he's there, and it's from his point of view where he hears them talking. Like you have like the squinted eye type look, like he's hiding, and all of a sudden he starts shaking when they ask, "What about the droid?" And he starts shaking, and you see Brasso catch the cup, and then he tries to calm him down. Like Brasso's like the stability figure that's left in Emo's life, and just the droid's like, I think his key point is later. At the second meeting of Brasso and Emo, but this one's like, I don't want to go, and he just kind of hanging out, and then like Brasso makes sure that someone's there to watch over the droid while he has to go to work, and then that's pretty much that scene. Is the ladies do the final bit with Marva's body and then move it out, and then you see Emo watching it. And then we cut to two other people watching this procession.
One of the good parts on the scene that I'll give it credit for here is that Brasso talks to B2EMO like he's a combination little kid and pet. It's very affectionate. It's very well-meaning. It's very genuine. So, I'll give all the actors credit for what they do. There isn't a weak performance here on the acting level. He talks up one of the Daughters of Ferrix when he's talking to B2EMO. He's like, and the daughters, they need you, in a matter of like great importance kind of thing, which is exactly what you tell a little kid in a crisis situation. Like, hey, we need you to go do X, Y, and Z with the big guys. And then they buy in, and, the crisis kind of smooths out a little bit. So it was nice to see that.
We've highlighted great acting throughout this. Each episode, we've highlighted different people. And this one, I'm going to bring up David Chapman, the voice of Emo, who just happens to be the voice of BB-8 as well.
Oh, get out of here. I hate BB-8, so fuck him for that. But, he's much better here where he can actually talk. I'll give you that. Good deep dive into the cast. The funeral scene's pretty good. It's very respectful. Marva's body's wrapped in their costume, put on the lift droid, the hovercraft thingy, and they kind of just proceeded out. But you're right. A couple of interested parties do take note of that. In the very next scene, we see that the mysterious ISB gentleman, who's kind of been perusing around Ferrix on that couple of blocks, covering the apartment, covering the bar that Andor and Bix have been at before, and Brasso's been at before. But this time he's posted up in the coffee shop that Cinta's working at. And he's trying to pump her for a little bit of info. She plays it cool, though, for a spy, which is to be expected.
Yeah, she's the new barista. Started there a week ago, as she told him, and he's trying to did that level of information. Like, did you know them?
He's trying to build the rap.
I've only been here for like a week.
Mm-hmm. Now, the funny part will be when he realizes that, when he reveals that, no, I know you've been here longer than a week, because that's probably coming, but we'll get to that. So that was a pretty quick bit that just establishes that Cinta's been there, that she's still got eyes on the situation there, but still waiting for Andor to show up. So she's been there for at least a month, because he was locked up for at least 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. It's been a minute.
Something like that.
Been a minute.
I mean, we could go back and look at the episodes where he's in prison and do the math on how many shifts he has left, but I'm not doing all that much.
Do you really want to break out like galactic standard calculus to get that kind of number? Let's just assume it's 6 weeks and call that shit a day. So when we flip back, they're back on the prison facility was Narkina 5. Are we to think that the planet was Narkina and they just named all the installations sequentially, or was it actually was it on a different planet?
No, they named the planet sequentially. It's the fifth one in that system, the fifth planet in that system. That's why it's Narkina 5, Yavin 4.
Oh, see, I thought it was the number of the prison facilities, because when they flew in the first time, you could see there were several of them in a cluster, and I thought there were 5 in there. Maybe so. You're right. It's probably just numerically named like Yavin. Okay, makes sense. So, anyways, they've escaped. Like we said, they're making their way. They're up on top of the mountaintop again, which itself is covered by more beachy sand, which I thought was an interesting touch, to be that high up and still have more sand. I thought that was kind of interesting. Guys, before anybody asks, I don't care if there's not a real world corollary to a mountaintop beach caldera with a lake in it. I do not give a shit. It was visually interesting to look at, and that's why I'm here. And if you had a comment on that.
These are alien planets,
right,
people. Right,
exactly. It doesn't have to have a direct Earth corollary every time.
Nope.
But what does need to have a corollary is quality in storytelling and how the story moves from point A to B. And we've arrived at my first complaint with this scene. I'll give a quick bit on the scene. They're up on top of the cliff face that they've ascended up to, and they basically come across 2 aliens that are fishing, moving something, testing water. I mean, there's a bunch going on in the scene itself. But they notice that these 2 jackasses have a quad jumper, a ship that they can hijack to make their escape. Right? Give me some impressions of this scene. What did you like about it? What didn't you? Before I get into why I did not like this from the jump. Besides, it looked interesting.
It's a standard plot point with a jailbreak where they have to get wheels to get out of there. So they notice 2 people minding their own business, and then they have a truck. In this case, they have a starship. It's same.
Right.
And then they're scouting it out. They're still in their prison uniform. It's like still being in the orange jumpsuit. Yep. So they're looking around, and then the one guy brakes too early. He's over anxious. And he breaks from their hiding point, thinking they have their backs turned, not paying attention.
Yeah. So before we get into the resolution of that, dude, I get that this is standard for prison breaks where they have like the farmer's pickup truck that needs to get hijacked so they can go, and they're always going to make the decision: do we leave them alive, or are they loose ends? We're the good guys. We're going to leave all that good stuff. I get all that. The reason this is so stupid here, and I hate it, is that this entire sequence to me feels procedurally generated, like exactly from that trope in a video game, right? And on top of that, you're talking about 2 guys that just made a prison break, swam 75 miles, climbed a mountain, and they just happen to find 2 fucking guys with a pickup truck they can steal on the top of a mountain for hundreds of miles as far as the eye can see. Right? They just happened to straight line it to these 2 guys. They didn't find a city with a port. Dude, it's too easy. This is some shit if it happened in Star Trek Discovery. Both of us would be like, this was too easy. It should not have been like this.
Well, one, we don't know how long they were looking.
Fair.
We don't know that. This could have been their 3rd mountaintop that they're looking for.
Fair.
That they just didn't cut that out. And 2, I don't believe there's any cities actually on this planet.
Possible.
Those floating things. So you have to have that.
Suspension of disbelief.
What do they call that? Yep.
Dude, I got you, dude. I knew you were going to say that. I plotted this whole conversation out for like 3 days, dude. I knew exactly you were going to say that.
Yeah, me too.
Dude. So it's just, dude, I suspend disbelief when I don't have to do as much mental gymnasticking as I think we just did in this scene, where it's like, well, they could have scouted 5 mountains already because we don't know how long they've been on the run. Well, if we're going to assume that if it takes place like near immediately after the previous episode, where have they been camped? What have they been eating? What's their medical condition? How do they have the strength to climb mountains on day 17 of a prison break that involved a transatlantic swim? You know what I mean? So that, because once I get down that rabbit hole of mental gymnastics, those variables come up, and that's when I hate overthinking these things. You know, most of the time, like you said, we can suspend disbelief and kind of just gloss over and be like, no, they just happened upon two jackasses doing their job, and we're just going to take the ship and go, right? But for me, I'm like, oh, dude, right after the Marva opening, I'm like, see, that already gut punched me. The lack of how that send off, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm mad. Now I'm mad.
The best way I can say is sometimes you have to roll a hard 6.
Yeah, there it is, dude.
And they rolled a hard 6.
Great effing line. Love that shit. Would like to see more of that where I can get it. Am actually rewatching that as we go, like in between other stuff. So, yeah, dope. I actually had I had a Facebook post of that the other day. I thought I'd put up an Adama and Roslyn duo photo. I thought I had that, but good work on the quote. Deep cut for anybody else. That's Battlestar Galactica. That's good stuff. But part 2 of this scene also resolves in a really, really weird way. Like you said, Andor's partner decides upon himself, like they're going to just go jump these guys and steal the ship. But they're basically running in from like an eighth of a mile away at like full sprint. And of course the plan doesn't work. He breaks way too early. Andor's not ready to go. I'm watching the scene now. They had cover they could have used to close this gap to like 15 feet. You know what I mean? But homie just wanted to go. Dude, he was off to the fucking racetrack, and I'm like, they're running in unarmed on 2 dudes, right? Either one of these dudes could have drawn real quick and plugged, and I was waiting for that. I was actually waiting for rando dude to get plugged. But they deploy some really interesting countermeasures. Walk me through the end of this scene, because this is not graphically, but effects-wise, I thought this was cool.
The best part was they looked at each other before they did this. He sat there and looked at it like, look at these motherfuckers here. Dude, it was and then he pushed the button. Yeah. It shot out some like I would guess like spider web.
Yeah, it was like some gooey web thing.
Gluey.
Yeah, gooey and gluey.
And it took them both down. Just like something you would set for like if you're hunting big game with a net.
Yep.
You could take it back to the Ewoks with their big net on the ground type thing.
Which is that's an old school like that's a real hunter's trap, the cargo net lift. That's like old school as hell.
Yeah.
This thing deployed from like a standing machine. You know what I mean? It just kind of spooged out in that direction. Knocks these guys down. It's heavy. It's sticky. They're immobilized. And these two, I should probably screen cap it. These 2 aliens look like they need to sign up for like some kind of Weight Watchers club or something like that when we actually see them up close. They're kind of chunky.
Could just be their cultural norm.
It could be, but also just the way they walk indicate to me that maybe they chunky even for their culture. But we don't get to see them yet because the last little bit of frame on that is the trap is retracting. It's kind of dragging Andor and his buddy closer to its the generator, like whatever fired it.
Yeah.
We get a quick scene here. I think the next one is the ISB. They're kind of just going over the situation that's going on Ferrix with Marva being dead. It's like Deirdre what's her name? Deirdre. Mira. Whatever. Why can't I remember her name? The ISB.
Daedra?
Mira Daedra. It's something like that. It's Daedra, Mira, or we got it backwards. I think her first name's Daedra. I think Mira's the name, last name, I think. But her team's basically
Daedra Mira.
Okay, that's so Mira's last name. So her team's reporting in basically that Andor's mother died. It's probably pretty obvious that he's if he's out there, he's going to make a move back for that. They go over kind of like what the cultural rituals are for like funeral services and things like that. And the one guy goes, which we're obviously going to deny for security purposes. And then very slickly again, Miro being the big brain in the room with absolutely the total support of all her coworkers, superiors, and subordinates because she's earned it. And we're not going to rant about that today because we've done that enough. We all know I simp for this character. She's well written. She basically authorizes her guys to like, no, listen, give him a permit for the funeral. Keep it small, box them in, and let's see what happens. Let's surveil. It's what we do. We're the intelligence company here. Let's do that shit. So I just thought that was it was well done and completely in character for who she is, because she's not emo Ren from the sequel trilogy. Like, she's not going to punch a hole in the wall if something goes wrong. She's going to seethe and look ice cold, but she's going to be calculating no matter what happens because that's who she is.
Yeah, she's always trying to gather more information.
Right.
So she can You give them enough rope, keep giving enough rope until they hang themselves.
100%.
And that's exactly what she's trying to do. She's trying to catch Cassian Andor because she believes that he's the only one who knows who Access is.
Right.
And that's why she wants him to interrogate him.
Right. So she's very much...
This could be the very thing that brings him into this trap that they can set, that they can control. They can control the whole thing because they have their headquarters there on Ferrix. They control the streets. And like she said, keep it small. That way they can watch everything, watch everyone who's there and take account.
Right. So everything that this character does throughout the show so far is it's a welcome addition to the general kind of crap level of stuff that we get. It really is. I mean, I appreciate it more than probably I should, given that this should be the standard. Like the standard should just be, even if it's not riveting or award winning, it should be effective. You know, it needs to be. Yep. And this is better than effective. But I think our standards have sunk so low with a lot of the genre IPs that we consume that we're now willing to pass things off as serviceable. And this one drives me crazy. Like when you read reviews, and the best thing anybody can say is, "Well, it wasn't that bad." When did that become high praise, dude? Like if the Lions finished like 7-10, and you go, that wasn't that bad. Like,
you should be happy.
I know, actually, that's a really bad example in retrospect. But I think you catch the flow of what I'm saying, right? Like stuff like when we were in school, right? Our parents were both tough on grades and things like that. They're like the C- wasn't good enough in our household, and that I think that we're getting lower than that in current stuff with Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars. Coming up, we saw it with Halo, we saw it with Resident Evil, and I'm working a video on the angle of how many more times do we have to see these shows not be up to par with fan expectations and quality before like this shit just stops. But this show's writing has been that good, and it's been showcased through characters like Data and Miro. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to simp on that today. But
and this is a show that's not getting the viewership,
right? Which again, like I mentioned it in the Black Adam review, I feel like we're now seeing concrete evidence of apathy having set in. I think that's what it is. That's what this is here, because I don't know if you heard, but they were talking about, I think Andor's first 2 episodes, I think are going to dip over to Hulu. I think so. If you're not bundled in and you only had Hulu and not just Disney
ABC.
Plus.
Yeah. Released on ABC.
It was going to be somewhere that was basically free to access. I don't know why I said Hulu. So they're going to do, I think it was either the first 2 or the first 3, just to get people in. I think it's coming out next month. I think they're doing it in December after the show's over. So that's desperation move.
You can watch the first 3 and then go binge the rest.
Right. So we'll see what happens with it. It's disappointing. I know when we finally get the Nielsen numbers out for this, like I don't think at its peak it's not going to hit top 10, which is something I routinely roasted things like She-Hulk for. So I mean, but again, just because if there's context and subtlety and nuance, you can be a garbage written show like She-Hulk and not break the top 10 for its own reasons, and then you can be an expertly written show that's just being overlooked for other reasons within a different genre, franchise. You know, I think Star Wars fans have seen enough. This is the 4th Star Wars show on the platform, right? We had Mando, we had Obi-Wan, we had Boba, and now this, and not counting the animated.
And then you had the animated one too coming out too.
Yeah, I mean not counting the animated, the live action stuff. So, I mean, this is our 4th throw with live action. We've had 2 seasons of Mando, the other 2 in this. So, I mean, I think people now have their expectations firmly set, and I think that there are plenty of people that would genuinely consider themselves fans of the franchise that are just like, well, Obi-Wan offended me to no end with that bullshit, and Boba Fett was just comically inept. So I'll wait for Baby Yoda to show up from Mando season 3, and that's all I'm gonna do. I think that it's sad, but
the trailer looks pretty good for season 3.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Do they talk about the Darksaber? Do they talk about the Darksaber?
No,
right.
They talked about how he's no longer a Mandalorian.
Oh, that's right. He's gone his separate way with the armorer. That's right. When does that start again? That's not next month, right? Is that next spring?
I don't remember the date.
No worries. We're not talking about Mando season 3 here today. No worries on that. But we will watch that when it comes through, I'm sure. But anyways, after the Dedra Meero scene, we jump back to Narkina where Andor and his buddy are roped up. And I just took a screen cap on the alien just to reference the double gut chonky situation. Please insert that frame here when you get a chance, King Z, just so we can showcase this. So these guys are on the ground. They're struggling. These two amphibious frog-looking chunky bipedal long-armed. One of them's got a prosthetic, which is kind of cool. He's got like the bionic claw thing going on. That was a nifty touch. Didn't need to be there, but I was digging it. But they roll up on Andor and the other dude, and this is where it gets a little confusing. At first, it sounds like there's obviously there's a bounty on these two for having escaped the prison, because one of the aliens, right? One of the aliens says to the other, it's 1,000 credits, dead or alive, for each of them, kind of thing. But then they kind of vacillate back and forth with like, the Empire's bad. They poisoned our water and this and that. But we're gonna get 1,000 apiece for you guys. And Andor and his boy are kind of down there like arguing, hey, we're not the Empire. We were prisoners. And I don't know, dude. Explain what you think is going on here for me, because this is another one that pisses me off.
So first off, I thought that they played they wrote the characters like a couple Cajuns.
Yeah.
Down in Louisiana.
They're down in the bayou. Yep.
Yep. I definitely got that vibe from them.
That was cool.
And yeah, they were going back and they were talking about like killing the smallies in the water.
Yeah.
Because I guess they're fishermen. And then he's like, no, we didn't kill him. It's the Empire. And he's like, no, all Empire. And then he's like, I kind of got lost in the conversation myself, because I don't actually know the point where they actually decided to let them go.
Dude, because it was so weird. Like the one dude with the prosthetic switches the handpiece out into like a machete, and I'm like, dude, they're gonna kill the other guy, and then Andor's gonna have to make his move. No, didn't happen.
Which I think they were just messing with them a little bit.
Maybe.
I mean, based on that first look from when they trapped him.
Dude, that was funny.
I think they started messing with them and just went on this little rampage just to get them,
like good and scared.
They wanted that pucker factor where they couldn't get a greased BB up their butt.
I mean, maybe, but like you said, I think it doesn't help that they went with a couple of aliens. I appreciate any time Star Wars has aliens make an appearance, because if it's not Jawas and sand people and stormtroopers, it's like we get the same shit over and over again. You know what I mean? So like it was interesting to see new stuff here. But I think what didn't work about this scene for me is that if they were going for that comic vibe where it was the aliens playing off each other to scare these two, it wasn't in English. It was subtitled in like the alien language, and then even within the alien language, they had it kind of Yoda-fied, where like the subject and the verb were either reversed, or they always ended a sentence with, what do they say, a hey at the end of the word, like very Cajun style, with wrapping up their like dialogue as punctuation kind of thing. But you're right. At some point or another, after they freaked them all out, they're just like, yeah, we just want to get on board your ship and fly away, and then they do. Like these two dudes just, all right, cool, jump on board. I mean, we know you just tried to rob us, and yes, we did capture you, but please jump on board our ship, and you guys drive first while we take a nap. Like, what? No.
Which I think he did pay them off, because the very next scene with Andor, we see what happens and where they go.
I mean, true. I mean, that's right. The aliens ask him where he wants to go, and he says Niamos, or whatever the resort planet he got arrested on was. And I believe I said that 2 episodes ago. I said at some point or another, he's going back for his money. There's no way he's not going back there for his loot. But I mean, like, then that would be the kind of thing you have to set up in the dialogue. Like that, I can pay. Like, he just needs one line. Like we always talk about, like the one throwaway line that just kind of covers that logic chain. And no, it's like these two strangers, just like if you and I were hitchhiking and 2 rando aliens were just like, you guys need a lift? And then like, cool, we're going to shut down for a while. You guys drive, and please don't steal our shit or kill us. Like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna, but how do you know that? I already tried to rob you once. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I don't know. That's so that was that, but it's not an awful big deal. So they jump on board the ship with the 2 aliens, and they bounce.
And they take off.
And they bounce, and that's it. And I kind of like that ship. And if I'm not wrong, as much as I hate the sequel trilogy, was that the ship that initially in episode 7, or that kind of ship, that Rey and Finn were going to use to evade the Empire on Jakku, but it gets obliterated by the TIE fighter, so then they have to get on the Falcon? It was because it was a quad jumper. It had the 4 engines in the back.
Yeah.
I think it was the same thing or similar. So I was like, all right, that's cool.
Same style.
I was like, that's kind of cool. All right, whatever, but still. So moving right along, because we're making good time here, which is great. We're back on Coruscant. We're in Luthen Rail's shop, which, as we learn later, is actually a legitimate operation because they can't lose a piece in a deal. Clay is working. She sees a customer outside the door and has to unlock to let her in because it's a very upscale kind of store. And the visitor is Vel, who's still walking around, looking for Luthen, not doing anything with her life. Discuss, because I talked about the last scene a lot.
So she comes in, like, she asks, she's like, you're doing this all wrong. I told you sending a message is bad. And she's like, if I put up a flag, it's going to be too late. And she was talking, and then them two go into a little banter back and forth. And I remember she's like, I gave her a Donnie. What have you done?
Yep. We're talking about Clea and Vel in the store, where Clea's acting very Luthen Rail-like, where she's keeping up the appearances. She's kind of walking around the store, asking about, oh, your cousin Mon Mothma is collecting jewelry lately. Would you like to see some stuff over here? And then the next sentence is, why did you do this dumb shit? You can't bring down the heat. Vel's obviously not playing along real well with this.
No.
But she has a legit thing she's trying to pass on. The dialogue here is she's trying to pass on to Clea and Luthen Rail that Marva Andor has died. And like, if you're trying to find this dude, Cinta's the only one there, but there's no way he's not going to hear about it and go home.
Yep.
So,
and then she said, I'm on my way to Ferrix. Pretty much like, I'm not waiting for orders.
Right.
I'm going this way.
Now, one of the things that I did like about Vel in this scene, besides her smoldering good looks, because I'm going to die on that hill too, when Clea kind of stonewalled her about Luthen being around or just not available or busy or whatever, Vel actually disclosed, like, I checked the back, ship's not there, so he's gone, where'd he go? Kind of this. The Fondor's not there. So she's still doing some spy shit like you should do, but like I think she's starting to come apart at the seams too, playing the waiting game. She's been away from the wife, the girlfriend, whatever they are. Clea's doing the stone cold thing, which is kind of how she's rolled the entire, since we realized she was in on it on the rebellion. So they're all in character, and it's fine. Next scene is the one we touched on a little bit earlier, where Cinta was keeping watch on Andor's house where Marva passed. She's still doing her job. But we get a little bit more of the ISB guy. He's talking into a concealed mic somewhere about, I want... the big guy just walked in, meaning Brasso, because he watched Brasso walk into Andor's house. And he basically calls in his guys, listen, we need full surveillance. I want to know visitors, deliveries, anybody goes through the back, anything. And basically he's just letting us know that he's still there. Really not a whole lot else there. We get a quick clip.
One thing that we did pass on.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. I thought it was
when Deborah Morrow was talking with her guys there on Ferrix, is that they brought up how they bury people, which I thought was really cool. Yep. Like they burn them and then they mix them in with brick, and then they literally become part of a wall.
Yep. You get rebuilt
that holds up. So so you're a cornerstone as a person, and then you're a cornerstone after you die, which I think is pretty cool. You're still holding up the society.
Yeah, you're still part of everything, which is kind of cool. Not bad. Next scene was a quick glimpse. I think it's just Brasso walking around Andor's home. He's telling B2 to stay there, but the robot doesn't want to leave. The robot's doing like the broken kid thing. Big sad.
No, he's like, you're gonna come with me. You're gonna come stay with me. He's like, I gotta go. I gotta work in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he says, I'm charging.
Like,
I don't want to go. Yeah, that's right. So he's like, you've been there all day. Mm-hmm. This is the part where I think David Chapman shined with this whole the line that just kind of breaks your heart. It's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I want Marva. Yep, that was good stuff. And then jumping right in on that, like being the doting big brother dad type. Brasso's, because the robot says, you don't have to go, you could stay here, and Brasso's like, all right, I'll stay, but only for one night, kind of thing. He caves and does the take care of the robot thing, which I thought, it's like you said, it's nice. It was a good performance from the voiceover guy as the robot. Got to give him that. Got to give him his due.
Yeah, like you hear the emotion in the
oh, it's warbly and cracking
voice.
like the whole time. Like it's legitimately pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great performance for a robot controlled or a remote controlled robot on screen.
Now, let me ask you this about not necessarily just the robot itself. And I mean, I guess it makes logical sense that Brasso is in this role because Bix, as we know, is still locked up. But like, would this have been better if B2 and Brasso had more going on between them in terms of screen time, or do you think that like that we can make enough assumptions that like it's kind of like a family unit with Brasso stopping by like the favorite uncle kind of thing, and they're tight anyway? Do we need to see that?
I think no, we don't actually need to see the past part because I think we covered that throughout. Like they've covered that in the story itself. Yeah, like how Andor went to Brasso for everything. You could tell all of them have a past with each other.
Yeah.
Like the whole community, like the daughters of Ferrix who took care of the body. Yeah. Like the community takes care of itself. True. They don't need outside help.
They're pretty tight. Yeah, I guess you're right. They're pretty tight knit.
Yeah.
I think I'll give him a pass on that because the cynic in me was kind of like, oh, you know, I mean, are we padding time with having this guy show up for this? We haven't seen the robot have a line of dialogue in like 5 episodes. But, you know, it was a pretty good, I guess, if they're not going to give me Marva's death on screen and have it be either poignant and dying in Bix's arms or Andor's arms at the last minute, or having her bomb the hotel or some shit like that. I mean, I guess having the robot as the mouthpiece for being like like for suffering, for the grief, to see how how somebody gets to respond to her actual death. Maybe it is kind of creative and kind of endearing that it's a robot of all things and not that it's a droid and not a person that's like suffering for it. So maybe that's pretty good, I guess. I'll change my mind on that part.
And you have to think of this community as a small town.
Right.
Like we're talking about a small town with less than 2,000 people.
Right.
Like the mayor. Like you went to high school with the mayor type small town.
Right. It's for all intents and purposes. It's like it's an Old West mining town. Like there's like the scrapyard that they had, like the hotel, the town hall, and like community housing, like the neighborhood. And that's it. They have a port to get in and off.
And a couple of small little shops here and there that do different things.
Yeah, it was like the bar. They had the bar and the place that had the hidden radio, whatever that was, like a communications depot or whatever that was. Another junk pawn shop.
And you're calling a Western is right on because Star Wars originally was
space
a Western converted into Star.
Western into space opera, 100%.
Yep.
Next up on the docket here, we learn Bix is still alive. She survived her torture, barely, because she is all kinds of roughed up and not looking good in this episode at all. Like she is pallid, she is sweating, her hair is matted to her face. Fried.
And you can hear that the talking messed with her because she's still reliving it.
Oh, right. She's reliving what Gorst told her about what exactly she was going to be hearing as part of the sonic torture that they kind of laid through her.
Yeah.
So in this scene that she's in, we dip in on her. She's still locked up. One of the Imperials comes in and takes her into custody. He's basically like holding her up to walk her down the hall and like into the next room. Where they start to question her. It's weird too because it's new characters. It's not Miro. It's not Gorst. I think one of their names was Corv and the other one was Keysax or something like that. And I'm like, did we not know their name? Like, were they there before and we just didn't get their names on screen? Because I don't remember either of the. Okay, so
that's exactly what.
Okay, I just didn't remember them.
They're part of the garrison.
Okay,
so they're pretty much like just the standard security.
Okay, I just was making sure they weren't introducing more important people. I just didn't see their names in the subtitle before. So okay, so the next round of questioning that they lay on her is, do you know Anto Krieger? Which, as you guys remember from our other episodes, Krieger is the other element that's kind of out there in the rebellion or rebellion adjacent. He's worked with Luthen Rail and Saw Gerrera before. They all have their different opinions of each other. And basically the Imperials put up a hollow image of him on their little display thing and ask Bix if this is, they want to know if he's Axis, basically, because they're asking him if this is the guy that you introduced Andor to. King Z, take it away, because I need to drink a water real quick.
And this part, you have her there and they show her and like, he's like, tell us the truth. If I think you're lying, I will have to bring back Dr.
Gorst.
Whatever his name was.
Gorst. Yep.
And then they put up the hologram. It's like, is this the person you introduced to Cassian Andor? And then she's there staring at it. And like, the best part is you never hear the answer.
Right.
You just have her break down in complete tears. Like either she going to say no and she believe that they're going to, do it to her again, or she's trying to break down like I'm going to betray this person, and
they did leave it right up in the air for that. And again, special credit. I mean, not that she's not like on the D list of like the characters in the show. Like she's named, she has significant impact on the plot. But again, the actor just turns in the role. Like if you guys are watching the subtitles on, because like when you get a little older, you struggle with accents and alien lingo. Like the only subtitle they can give you from Bix is just in parentheses sighs. That's it. Like because she's so exhausted, she's so ruined by the torture. And maybe I might go back after the fact and screen cap just a quick shot of her, and you could throw it in here because you have her from episode 1 where she's even for like Trading Post, very attractive, very clean looking, hair is all done, not like done up for like prom or nothing, but like she's put together. She's an attractive woman. In this scene here, this is what you would look like after like 6 weeks of imperial custody. Like you'd be barely standing, barely breathing, barely speaking, and she just pulls it off. It's this quick set of like not gasp but like strained breath, borderline bleary-eyed on the tears, just quick looks around the room like perpetual danger, shit like that. And she just pulls it off. So I'm good with any time she's on screen in either hot mode or prisoner mode. I'm good either way. Next scene up, one of the good scenes, I would say, because this one, at first I was not going to give it a pass because it was I thought it was a road, like a speed bump kind of thing. But the more I thought about it, I was like, that it's a logical way to show her having reconsidered the offer from. I think it was Davos. Davos was Game of Thrones. Davo, D-A-V-O. Basically, the Coruscant, the Chandrilian billionaire, basically, with ties to organized crime. We see that she's probably walked back that opinion because when she's at the beginning of the scene, she's watching her daughter, Leda, is kind of in the middle of like a religious kind of like Sunday school situation. They're working through like prayers and chants with a teacher. They're all dressed in the same garb. It looks like a basic, very modest ceremonial kind of tunic or robe or cloak or something like that. Yeah. And Mon's just kind of watching her through like frosted glass, but we get the voiceover of the prayer. And it has an obvious religious tone. You know what I mean? And then Vel walks in. And they seem to have difficulty reconciling what's going on with this ritual or with this decision. What did you make of Vel in this situation here?
So you could tell that it's like an old like religion, part of their culture of the planet they came from. And Vel was like, "You're really doing this?" And she's like, she wants to do it because she's like, she brought up like, "I remember doing this. I remember you doing this." Right. Because she didn't do it. She didn't go through it. And then she's like, is it Proths, which is her husband? And he's like, no, he's actually more liberal than I am on this.
Yeah, her line there was actually, he's surprisingly open-minded on it, which I thought was weird. But again, they don't have enough time to do anything really cool with that as like unless it's a season 2 thing. And maybe, to be fair, maybe this is a setup for something that the Mothma family has to cope with in season 2, like religious fundamentalism or something like that. Because my impression with Mon watching, like she's obviously not happy about what she's seeing, but Vel
because she thought they moved on from this,
right? But Vel looks outright disgusted by it in some of the things that she says. She's like, "The fuck is this going on over there?" And you're cool with this, like that the custom has been something like that's been thrown by the wayside like multiple generations ago. But we're just bringing it back now. Why? And then the connection there is because and doesn't she ask if there was there a betrothal or a proposal, or I think that's actually that's in here somewhere.
She asked about that part. Yeah.
Right.
She asked like, are you going to do the like
the arranged marriage thing?
Arranged marriage.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, arranged marriage. She's like, we're not there yet.
See, it's strange because it's like Mothma tries to play.
Oh no! Have you taken any proposals?
Right.
That was it.
Yes.
That was the line.
Yes, and she says, and you're right. We haven't been there yet, but we know it's coming because her only way out of getting pinched by ISB or the Department of Treasury or whoever runs it in this world is to basically work with the mobster to like put the cash back in and launder down the whole thing or whatever they're going to do with her friend Tay Coloma. So we know that's going to have to be a thing. But it's interesting that if they're going down that route, I don't see why, like, because we don't know enough about the culture, but like she's making it sound like it's the daughter's idea to engage in this. Does that mean the daughter is also likely going to be okay with the arranged marriage?
And her friends are in it.
Right, but see, none of what we've seen, I guess this part of the scene bugs me too. None of what we've seen of the daughter through 3 or 4 episodes leads me to believe that she's a traditional, like, religious fundamentalist kind of kid. Like, she just struck me as a very secular teenager.
They did make a point of it about her hair.
Did they?
When she came into the party. Yep, they did say something about her hair when she came in.
Her first appearance?
It's very traditional.
Oh, okay, all right. Then yeah.
After Mon Mothma turned down the drink, where they put the worm in.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'm getting kind of tired of it. And
it's yes.
Like closer drink.
Okay, all right. So dude, all right. Then again, then they very cleverly wove in some setup and some world building to make that work.
It was like a totally throwaway line that you really didn't think about. But if it's there
and can be discussed like this, then I get to go, okay, you did your homework. I didn't need an episode on the backstory of the culture or the faith or anything like that. That's effective. So so there was already a way in that suggests the daughter was on a path to following this kind of this lifestyle.
And you realize that the hair has a part in the religion.
Because it's mentioned in the prayer.
About, the braid and the knot and stuff like that. So you could tell based on their knots and their hair.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I have Kingsley on the show. Because a lot of stuff that I want to go right to the throat for usually just requires a couple minutes of restraint. You talk to a friend. He says, listen, dipshit, you obviously weren't watching. They already mentioned this shit. Pay more attention. And I'm like, yeah, dude, but I don't know. My son wouldn't be quiet for 8 seconds, and they probably said that one line, and that scene went away when I was making a turkey sandwich for him or something. I don't know. So, anyways, they have a discussion after they were, after they're watching the prayer of the daughter and things like that about just how much deep shit she's in about the money and how in the beginning it was all easy and I was moving $100,000 a month and nobody cared, but now I'm on the hook for like $400K and they're coming soon. Mon Mothma kind of lets Vel know. I don't think she mentions him by name, but she lets him know that I'm about to jump into bed with like an unsavory character, and I'm pretty boned. And then she's like, "What will it take?" And then that's when the daughter came and she looked at him. And they just kind of had that knowing look at each other, right? That they had to change. And then they had to change gears back to like high society socialites. Yeah. And what are you doing back, Aunt Vel? I've come to spend time with you. Look how tall you got, right? But before they had that, though, they have a quick mention of trust when they're talking with Mon Mothma talking to Vel, where Vel correctly guesses that the actual friend Mon Mothma might have been working with was her old friend from school, Tay Koloma. So I thought that was fairly insightful of Vel to kind of be able to put those two things together, given that we know that Vel's been removed from the family for a good time now that she's been doing the jet-setting rebellion, freedom fighter thing. Like, she's probably out of the loop of who Mon Mothma is currently working with, things like that. So I thought that was a cool little bit of insight. They do their standard talk. They always talk about risk, and I know the risks, and this is what we have to do. I'm trying to see because there's a lot of talk in this whole series about trust and duty. Definitely. I mean, those are the themes there. They're talking about the credits here. I thought that did they mention Aldani here? I thought they did. Maybe they didn't. So it looks like they're really just legit. I guess they didn't. They were just talking about about Tay helping them with moving the money, and then the daughter comes in, and he's the one who noticed the problem. How bad it was, and she knew she was already in a little bit of shit. But she says he kept peeling back layers to really let me know, like how deep of shit I'm in. So. Again, it's fairly boilerplate for them too, though. They kind of have different conversations every time they get together, but it more or less amounts to the same. It's Mon Mothma's scared of what's going on, and Vel is like the freedom fighter. She's the one with the ice water in her veins. That's basically like stay the course, be safe. This is what we chose. We need to make a difference. So, I mean, that hasn't changed. You can see that the creator and the writers using their relationship as exposition dumps, pretty much. So when we steamroll right through the next, we get my favorite mother-son duo in the entire galaxy. Karn's sleepy time. Mommy comes in the room, lets know he has a call. And then at this part, I wanted to groan because I had distinct vibes of like I don't know, like a comedy show or something. Like it was supposed, and you could play this for laughs. The tone wasn't supposed to be grim, dark, serious here. Like this wasn't like Abercrombie's The Blade itself or anything like that. Like it wasn't a serious enough moment to get bent out of shape that it was kind of comical, but it kind of went on too long, like with the repeated joke of the back and forth. I'll let you talk about the dude. Who's calling up Karn in the middle of the night?
It's our good old Sergeant First Class. I forgot his name. He's been gone so
Mosk.
long.
Mosk. Mosk.
Mosk. That's right.
So
I was here flipping through the cast in this one.
Yeah, I got the subtitles. You're good. So
and he breaks down what he's hearing, but the problem is has the same internet I have right now, and our calls keep getting a little broken up.
They're on dial-up, and for you guys that are under the age of about 1 billion, dial-up is what the internet used to be, where you needed your phone line to connect to the internet, and not everybody could use it at the same time. Good times. But the conversation it's funny. I mean, it makes sense why it needs to be there, because like you said at the beginning of the show, this is the mechanism by which Karn finally gets off his ass and goes and does something, because he hasn't had much to do other than realizing when he worked with Miro last time and she told him to step off after he read the incident report about the double murder that he solved. He's basically just been bumming around doing his Department of Weights and Measures bullshit. But Mosk basically lets him know that he's heard that Marva Andor has passed, and that if you wanted to find your boy, you should probably head, down to Ferrix, where you were.
Yeah.
But so what happens when King Z's talking about the dial-up internet and things is, every time Mosk tells Karn something in this scene, Karn doesn't hear him because the message breaks up, and then Mosk repeats back not useful shit that he thought Karn was asking him.
Yeah. And then there's also like machinery going off in the background.
It's loud, dude. It's loud, dude. It is loud.
Yeah. And he was talking about how this is the break phone type thing.
So brevity is encouraged.
It's in the break room.
So he says, brevity is encouraged, sir, but then he talks 2 minutes before he gets to the point. And I was like, dude, okay, so you just told me I don't have much time, but you're kind of just telling me more of the same shit. I don't know. It's whatevs. It's funny. It's basically the trigger that gets Karn moving in the story. It wouldn't be a scene with Karn's mom if she didn't roast him on the way out the door, because she hits him with the parting jab of like, oh, and the mysteries of your former glory have been revealed, yada yada, and then she just fucks off back to bed. Like, that's it. Like, there's no comeback. Although he throws a glance at her as she's leaving. I'm like, oh, he's finally gonna Norman Bates this chick. Like, is he gonna do this next week before, like, her knives out finally for mom? I don't know, but dude, I hate them so much. Her character is annoying. She's annoying in the same way that the mechanic on Mandalorian just kind of annoyed me. She's just too real world out of place. Even if she's modeling stuff that should be relatable, like an overbearing parent, or just some like tough knuckle dragging mechanic like a Mandalorian with that chick. It just it grates on my nerves when it goes on too long, and the mom in this is just well past that point for me. I don't know. Did you get anything out of Karn or Karn's mama in this scene, or is it pretty nothing special here? I didn't think it was pretty standard.
I just remember her walked away comment, and
then that's what I mean. Like her whole role is basically to break his balls, even though he hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, he hasn't been wrong yet. He's a little psycho. We know this. He's got a way too big of a hard-on for Mira, who's gonna have him hung. Like, that's a thing. Like, if you don't back off her, like, that restraining order doesn't come with a fine. You know what I mean? It's gonna be, they're gonna hang you. So he better watch his step there. And maybe that'll happen. Who knows? Maybe if they all end up on Ferrix at the same time, that's a thing. Like, he bumps into her at the starport. She takes him into custody. Who knows? Anything could happen. But we're gonna move right along here. Hit the play button. We get out of Karn's apartment. He hangs up on the call. And we're back on Niamo, finally. We're back on Beach Planet. This is kind of funny, actually, I thought. Like, with Andor basically ends up in the same cabana that he left. It's obviously a rental because there's two completely different alien people sleeping in the bed, which is kind of funny. He slips into the bathroom, into the shower, goes above the shower unit, grabs his guns, grabs the chips out of the credit, the Republic credits. grabs his cash, and he basically slips out before they wake up. I just thought it was kind of funny that like these two dipshits are just sleeping in like the double wide queen bed. I looked to see if it was the same woman he was with, and I was like, okay, because that's interesting bit of story if it was an escort that he had hired, but it's two rando aliens that are just kind of hanging out.
Yep.
Nothing to go over there. Next one is a big one to go over though. It's Luthen Rail has gone back to speak to Saw Gerrera. The guards let him know that Gerrera's in a mood. But I didn't catch that they explained anything about why he would be in a mood. And why don't you give me let's get you in the game a little bit here.
Well,
go ahead.
That was the whole thing about it, was that he's in a mood. And then when he comes in, where he's talking about he's in like to help out Creeder.
Right.
Something happened. We don't need to know what, but something put him over the tipping edge. Like I will do this. I will provide support. He come in as a buy-in part. Like, I'm ready to go now. Like, something happened. I want to kill somebody.
But we need to know the why. Like, the why is important here, is it not? How's the why? No. That's a major motivational shift. That's a 180-degree change in his stance on being involved. And I get why they did it, I think, because they wanted to put Rail in the position of having to have that like square off that they had at the end of the conversation. When they get in there, right? We'll just go run through. We'll go through the run through. The guards search him. He rolls up in there. He does his Luthen Rail thing.
They took his spyglass.
He's like, either give me it or put it down, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So maybe there's something cool in there. That'd actually be kind of dope if there was like a dagger in it, or like it modifies out into a blaster or some shit. That'd be pretty pimp. But anyway, so Rail gets in there. And like King Z said, Saw Gerrera now, for reasons unknown, to be fair, we don't know, like you said, is now 100% on board with providing air support under his terms, very intelligently, where he's like, I don't take tactical orders from anybody. We do this our way. You just tell me when to be there and I'll be there, but I want to get paid. Like, I want all the gear that we talked about before.
You promised me.
I want it all. And the minute he's like basically done announcing his terms, Rail even asked him, he's like, it's like, what is this? What is the change of heart for, kind of thing? And I don't feel like we really got that well communicated out, but Gerrera just basically doubles down and says, tell Krieger, make it happen. I'm in. And then Rail drops like the bombshell on him. And he's like,
I don't think we're going to do this one anymore.
Right. The conversation evolves, and he basically says, like, dude, the ISB knows he's coming. And then the ethical
we set up.
Yep. The ethical conversation that they get into is Saw Gerrera basically just column A's and column B's the whole thing. He's like, so it's 30 men, and then Rail jumps in and goes, and Krieger.
And Krieger.
And he does it twice, which I thought was pretty funny. Like, effectively funny. Or us. And are you willing to let them burn? And he says let them burn, to protect, because Gerrera very astutely figures out that Rail must have a bigger piece to protect, so he must have somebody on the inside of the ISB, which I thought was,
breaks it down.
Dude, it was awesome.
He's like, there's only two reasons why, and it was like, one, either they betrayed you and you just want them to die, or two, you have someone in ISB that you're trying to protect. And he just gave him that look. He's like, you have someone in ISB that you want to protect.
And then he doubles down on that.
Well, why let him burn? And he's like, why did you let him burn when I'm going to try to support, when you did pretty much take us both out? And he's like, doesn't Krieger know you? He's like, we've been in the same room, but he doesn't know who I am.
Right.
You know who I am. You can hurt me more if they capture you.
Right. And then I think one of the epic parts of dialogue, and I think it comes right after that part you just said, is Gerrera basically says, well, how do I know you're not ISB? So we get right to the chase. Like, that's in there somewhere in this conversation.
He just nails it.
Yes.
This is where Rail comes in. He's like, if I was ISB, you would already be dead.
Right, because why would I be in here? I don't think I'd have taken off and nuked this entire joint from orbit last time. You know what I mean? So it was good. And I like these two as mouthpieces for the ethics of the war effort, and the cost, of the human cost, or the tactical cost, or all, whatever's involved, like the stakes.
The butcher bill.
The butcher, exactly right. I like that they both want this, and we talk about this when we talk about writing all the time, like offline, and like how these character kind of things work. They both want the same. At the end of the day, they both want the same thing. Like, they want the Empire gone. At the same day, they're both ruthless sons of bitches. We know this about both of them. But they have very different methodologies for how they go about the ruthlessness.
And also self-preservation plays
Right.
a huge part.
Well, right, because you can see the parallels here. Luthen Rail operates in plain sight, keeping up the double identity of the charismatic upscale shopkeeper, flush with cash, dealing with, high society's, top 1%ers. Saw Gerrera is very much the guerrilla fighter up in the mountains with the net covered camps and the plains that are all, they're all marked up and hidden by cover and shit like that. And we move locations and never sleep in the same bed 2 nights in a row kind of thing. Like they're very different people that want the same thing, but take very, I don't know any other way to describe them than roundabout ways, branching paths, if you will, to get to where they have to go. And
then when they both come to their self-realization point, it's like 30 men and Krieger.
Yep. And Krieger. Yep.
And then he's like, for the greater good. He's like, if that's what you want to call it, let's just call it war.
And that was a stone cold bit of writing right there. Where it was good shit. Because once again, let's get our weekly simp for these 2 characters out of the way. Dude, are these the best 2 performing characters on the show in terms of named cast with dialogue? I mean, Mira's good. They've written her really well.
Yeah.
But none of her dialogue punches like these 2. These 2 just own it.
Luthen Rails had the best dialogue.
That speech last week was off the wall good.
And the only other better actor than these 2 that's been in here is,
Serkis.
Of course, Smeagol.
Yep, Andy Serkis. Yep.
I mean, Andy Serkis.
Then these 3, because Gerrera doesn't really get the hero monologue or like that kind of scene stealing bit of dialogue, but every time he speaks, because Forrest Whitaker brings gravitas to a role, the tone of voice he uses, the inflection that he uses, that raspy, gaspy, like that thing he does, it's memorable. And what he has to say always hits. Like it's not a monologue, it's not a speech, but it's like the things he says are important. Like he's not comic relief. He's not there to let another character push the story forward off of him. Like he's not an accessory to the scene. He is the scene. Like he's half of what's going on with it. And at any given minute, he can react in a way because of who he is that might not be good for you.
Yeah. And his body language, like
right.
The whole time, like he started from the side, like when he was talking, and then when everything started turning, he turned towards him, like he wasn't backing down, and then he started moving towards him. Like the body language of that's like, I'm not backing down. Yep. You need to tell me why. I'm keep coming forward. And then Luthen Rail was like, no, I'm coming forward too. Right. Until they get like really close. Yep. I mean, it's beautiful acting to set that whole scene up.
Yeah, this is definitely on. These 2 are definitely on point. And maybe there's something to what you said earlier on about Gerrera's motivation at this point, because when Rail enters, like, Gerrera is basically like, when he's talking to him up front, he's basically pacing like a trapped animal, like he's caged. Like there's a lot of agitation in the back and forth at the distance that they're at. There's a lot of over the shoulder turns and like how he's communicating back, and it's almost he's jabbing back at him. Like it's very punchy, like the responses. Like they did away with the pleasantries of their first conversation 4 or 5 episodes ago, where there's a whole lot of smiles and, oh, it's good to see you. Hey, was all down to you? No, it wasn't me. Like, no, I thought it was you. I thought it was you. 5s and handshakes. Like, no, dude. These as they are now is who they are as people. This is their true selves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like you said, dude, masterfully done.
And I think that's what they were trying to portray with him, like because you did. From their first encounter, you detect that Saul was kind of passive. He takes orders if he gets paid. Right. This one, he shows that he's in charge. Yep. This is what I do. These are my people.
Right. This is him who's in Rogue One.
He's like talking about the people, because he was like, "You have people everywhere. Who's in here?" And he was like, dude, it's Tubes.
Dude, yep. Dude, and I was like, dude, he's gonna shoot this dude, because as we see this dude in Rogue One, Saw Gerrera, like he's paranoid. Like he's borderline. He's paranoid for sure, and he's borderline psychotic by the time Rogue One goes down. So I thought this part was effectively good at kind of marching that character down towards the madness that's to come for him in like 5 years or whichever. But yeah, Rail basically throws this guy under the bus.
And he's like, he pulls the gun because the guy's like, "You're lying. It's not me." And I believe he did it to draw him, but he knew how he react.
Yes.
So he could pull his weapon and put it on him. He's like, "Now listen."
Right. and clue everybody in. Like he basically he puts Guerrera Luthen Rail puts Guerrera at gunpoint so he can tell him, I needed for you to hear me like 100%. And if I remember right, he basically warns him. He doesn't warn him not to. What exactly does he tell him again? Remind me. Like he's basically like dude. I'm trying to roll it back here because I remember thinking you probably didn't need to put him at gunpoint for that. But let me pull it back up on the line here.
Because this is the whole time when he was still being aggravated that he wasn't going.
Oh right.
His temper.
Let's call it war is the end of the scene. That's right. Right. Okay, it was the very end. Yeah, it was out of my head at the minute. And so the next scene,
and this is where he explains himself.
Right,
he puts himself back into a power position because he was put into like Saw Gerrera was in the power position because all of his men are armed.
Right,
and then this puts him back in the power position, and then he gives the gun back like, I'm not going to kill you.
Didn't. Yeah. True. And, so again, masterfully done by those two as usual.
Amazing.
Next scene up, we're back on Karn's apartment with Mom. He's dressed for work. He's kind of hiding out in the hallway. She's leaving for the day. It's early. It's whatever. He goes back into the house. Looks like he heads into her room, gets into the safe that he has the combo to. So we see her jewelry in like a top shelf. But he borrows a little bit of money. Maybe he needed money for lunch and she forgot to leave it on the table. I don't know.
He took a 20 from her purse.
Right, took a 20 from the purse. Actually, I don't think he took everything, so that's true. He kind of just like borrowed what he needed. And obviously the implication here is he's buying, space fare to Ferrix. So he's flying out. All right. Next scene up kind of sets us up for the big action piece for the episode because most of the good ones tend to have
this was awesome.
It was pretty dope. It was pretty dope, but then at the other hand, and I'm going to talk about this. We'll talk about it when we get there. I thought it was dope at first, and then I didn't like it, and I have a specific reason why I didn't. But we'll cover it. But it still looked good. So basically, Rail's back on his ship after visiting with Guerrera. He's touching base with Clea back in the home office. This is where she lets him know that Marva Andor has passed. You should probably get back down here so we can figure out what to do next, I think is how the conversation goes. I'm trying to see here. They also have a discussion, and it's interesting too. The discussion that they have is about losing out on a piece for the collection, and that could have dire implications for the shop if we don't get it. We need to get it, and this and that. Are they talking about Andor? Was this subtext beautifully done? Yeah, exactly. So this is missing.
It was pretty much
in lots of shows.
It's like having that phone call from an operator, like, hi, hey babe, how you doing today? And he's actually talking about the home base, and he's giving a full report, just talking about how he's going to pick up pizza and what we're going to do tonight.
It was pretty slapping. I got a kick out of that. So it was good to see because again that ties into the spycrafty kind of stuff, like you said, where we talk in code that looks perfectly normal for the context that each of the characters would be in case they were being listened to. So again, it ties into that Cold War spy versus spy stuff. So that's always a welcome addition in the story here. So it was cool to see. So we get into this is the big showdown scene here. It's pretty cool. We get a type of Imperial ship that I've never seen before in live action. I mean, it might have been around in the background somewhere, but I don't think it has. Maybe it's been in Clone Wars or something animated. But it's pretty cool. It's like a standard triangular Star Destroyer ship, and it's got like a giant radar dish, deflector dish on the front that's their tractor beam, and it's got a couple more of them on each point of the fixed wings. It's a very weird looking ship, but it's very cool.
It's a pirate hunter.
Perfect, because that's exactly what's going on in scene. So they're obviously, and they say that too. I mean, that would be the dedicated function of the ship. Basically, Rail's heading out from wherever Saw Gerrera was, and he gets intercepted by the Imperials, who were like, this is a piracy zone. We're gonna need you to transmit some codes and bureaucratic procedure and this and that. But as always, Luthen Rail is a step ahead. He dips right back into a persona of being like, kind of a feeble old man. I'm working by myself. But under his breath and off the comms, he's telling his ship's AI, I'm gonna need an Alderani transponder code, and I need it now. Hustle this shit up. And cool stuff happens after he's setting the table, because the Imperials are getting increasingly miffed with him stalling. I gotta shut down my thrusters. Hold on, I gotta do it manual. I gotta do all this crap, and then the fun starts to happen. Dude, you take us in a step from where the fun starts and get us through.
So he's there and he's talking with his AI and he starts charging up what it named countermeasures. And then he's faking his thruster, and this guy, you could tell he's not really buying it.
Yeah.
So he's like, get my air wing ready, get a boarding party ready. And it was like, and then the transporter was like, he's like, check it out. And the guy's running it, and he's like, do we have anything on it yet? And he's like, it's in the queue. And he's like, shut down your thrusters, be prepared to be boarded. And he's like, I'm working. And then he's like, he ignores him while he's still talking to his AI about moving thruster power around. And so he's like, oh, I'm here by myself. I have to do this manually. He's like, sorry, I'm a one-man show. And then he comes back and he's like, the code checks out. It's good. He's like, should I call down the boarding party? He's like, we still need practice.
Dude, which was so good, dude. Let's stop right there for a minute, dude. I love that, right? I love that part about this scene because, like we've spoken before a billion times throughout the course of this show, that's some shit that like the deck officer would do, or the captain or whomever on like a naval vessel. Like you've seen it done in other good war movies and things like that. Where like, you know, like oh dude, what was Denzel and Gene Hackman, the sub movie Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide.
Right? Where like they have a fire drill, or they have a weapons drill or something gone wrong, and Hackman calls for like the fire drill at the same time. And Denzel's like, dude,
it was a fire, and he calls for a weapon.
Yeah, whichever one it was. And Denzel looks at him all incredulous, and it's like, but no, that this is the best fucking time to test for this when there's actually some bullshit going on. By extension, or by corollary, this scene here. Dude, some bored-ass captain, you know, running a patrol route, no action's gone on in a quick minute. Dude, a good captain would probably insist upon practicing this exercise in a what they believe is a low-risk situation. This is exactly when you would do this kind of shit. And it's just like, I saw that, I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that effectively moves plot for me forward. Because it was nothing Luth and Rail did in this scene that could have prevented the officer from doing it. Like this was an organic challenge to Rail's escape that came up that he couldn't have planned for in a way. Like he couldn't have predicted this was. I mean, he had the countermeasures on the ship just to cover it, but in the moment, this guy makes sense for him to be there and say that. Like it's not like some bullshit happened and like all of a sudden Rail's engine shut down because they were poorly maintained or some crap, or the computer went out or something like that. Like no, this guy would order this maneuver right now and order the boarding party to do his thing. So I'm with that. So all right, pick it back up from there. He's in the middle of the scam. He's powering up countermeasures. The Imperials are pissed.
Like full thrusters, and he tries to pull away from the tractor beam as they increase power on the tractor beam. He's like, where's my air wing? And he's like, they're going now, sir.
Oh god.
And then and he's like, all right. Then the charge meter, you can see, you know, random percentage finally gets to 100
on Rail.
He hits he hits the button, and all these metal things start flying towards the ship that hits the tractor beam dish and just destroys it.
Yeah, they basically flat cannoned it to
tractor beam
bits.
Power's down.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he takes off. He arms his weapon as the TIE fighters come out. This is the part you hate, is the TIE fighters got easily handled
because it was stupid. Oh my god, dude. The fucking plane, the Fondor deploys these two lightsaber-like projection beams, you know, off each side of starboard and port, and enters a barrel roll maneuver that slices up the 2 or 3 TIE fighters that are in pursuit. And like, dude, I had to pause it here because I'm like, the fuck was this? This is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen in space combat in my life. Dude, what would the function of these devices be in anything other than this situation? And like, it wouldn't be a thing that could be possibly considered effective if it's not some kind of like Deus Ex Machina kind of move. This was dumb, and it came right off the heels of the cool flat cannon into the tractor dish, which I now have to segue into why I hate that part now too. Dude, do you know what that part really is? Where he flat cannons with the tractor beam? Dude, it's the Holdo maneuver from episode 8. It's the same thing, right? Going forward from this moment, pre-Rogue One, pre-episode 4 even, right? How would every fucking ship in the galaxy not have countermeasures like that? They ruined space combat with that. The tractor beam is no longer an issue. We can just flat cannon the fuck out of it. In fact, why wouldn't I just turn my blaster around and blast the tractor beam with my ship's cannons?
Because you have to think back to when the Millennium Falcon was pulled into the Death Star.
Right.
The tractor beam was actually inside.
Okay, fine. On the Death Star.
So you couldn't.
On the Death Star. But ship
Same
to
with
ship?
the Star Destroyer. Same with the Star Destroyer.
All right, so
when it pulled in,
yeah,
remember it went above Princess
pulled it
Leia's
up
ship
and shit. I mean, fine.
And pulled it up.
But at some point or another, the hatch is open and you could shoot it. And even if dude, I will give you the Death Star, and I'll even give you the Star Destroyer, dude. This class of ship, obsolete from this moment on, because there's an obvious way to counter.
That's why you didn't see it. This is pre Yavin 4.
Oh, the gold medal in mental gymnastics goes to America on this one. There it is. Good point. Good point. It's a reach. It's fair. But I saw both of these in tandem. The lightsaber barrel roll thing was Kylo Ren levels of stupidity.
I just thought you got upset with the TIE fighters.
Dude, and again, because I saw the TIE fighters come barreling out and they're doing their thing, and I'm like, well, he's on like a little puddle jumper kind of ship. There's no way how is he going to out dogfight TIE fighters? And then he does.
I'm surprised.
With some bullshit.
I'm surprised you didn't say anything about them bringing out 2 normal TIE fighters, 1 interceptor, and 1 bomber.
Wait, whoa! They had 4. They had it. Oh, dude! Yeah, you're right. I remember they had the 2 TIE fighters. They had the advanced TIE fighter with the triangle wings. I'm pretty sure I saw that. Did they have the dual cockpit bomber? Do I have to go back?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, then I will have to go back and watch that because I must have blinked.
That was the first
when they came out the
destroyed
hangar
by the blaster fire.
Oh, dude, get the fuck out of here, dude! I'm not going to take it too personal that they smoked an air wing of TIE fighters, but it's like spinning shipboard lightsabers is not what this show needed. Dude, you know what that is? This is Skittle Squad from Book of Boba Fett. I know you didn't watch that. I refer you back to my Facebook comments on every episode of that garbage hot dog shit pile show, because dude, this was groan inducing in its stupidity for me. That thing, when the beams project and I'm like, is he gonna laser guide like ordnance to them or something like depth charge? Nope. Just cut him.
As soon as I saw the wings come up and the laser shoot, I knew exactly what was going to happen.
I was like, well, dude,
I didn't think you were going to do a barrel roll. The barrel roll was a good visual.
Dude, again, it's that stuff is style over substance, just like the Holdo maneuver from episode 8. Dude, visually, that shit was striking as all hell. They go quiet on screen, It's dark, it's very slow, and then it's just the streak of light through Snoke's ship. It was cool as fuck to look at, and it wasn't until I got home and had time to think about that like an hour later and be like, well, dude, why don't we just put like FTL drives on like mini asteroids and throw them at everything the Imperials have from now until the end of time? Like it's basically a Mass Effect mass driver at that point. You just accelerate something heavy against something that isn't shielded and they're fucked. Like that's it. Like you I don't know. It's like space combat's ruined. It was. But that was also from the same Star Wars movie where, of course, Kylo Ren figured out for the first time in space combat history, firing a guided rocket into an open hangar bay would, destroy his mother's ship, kind of thing. It's like maybe we could just, not have guided rockets penetrate unshielded. It's fucking stupid. And dude, I hate that movie. Anyway. So it was just kind of funny. So Rail makes his getaway. Stylistically, it looked cool as fuck, yada yada. I thought when the wing ports were opening, I thought he was about to drop sonic charges like Boba Fett's original ship did. I thought that's what was coming out of that, like the seismic bomb. I thought was coming through.
I was thinking it was going to be something like a mine or something.
Yeah, depth charges, space depth charges. Yep. But then the Fondor makes the jump to hyperspace. He's smoked the Imperial guy. The Imperial guy is all, groany and looking angry out the window, and he's kind of flanked by the reflection of stormtroopers, which is another cool visual. So that's pretty dope. And then I
didn't like the part that he shook his head though. Like the shot, and he's there, and he's like,
did I just cut it short? Did he shake his head?
He did.
It's a little overacting at that point then, because it's probably not needed, like you said.
No, he should have took his head off and threw it.
You think so?
He should have been extremely angry. I think it was too little.
Interesting. See, because I always go for the stoic Imperial officer kind of type is what I would expect. Like if he had that kind of display, he wouldn't be taken seriously and be replaced by somebody that was calmer, cooler, more collected.
Well, he's going to be replaced anyway.
That's a good point. He basically just lost the ship and lost a prime sus. Well, they don't know who Rail was, so they don't know they lost Axis at this point.
No, they thought he was just a pirate.
Right.
Flying that
but he
ship.
did get his ship wrecked and lost, 4 other support ships. So there's that. But we've come to the final episode of the final scene in the episode, which is kind of trash because that means there were like 9 minutes of credits this week, which is weird because it should be fairly standard. So actually, this does make for an episode that only goes 38 minutes, I think it was. So it's a few minutes shorter than a couple of the other ones.
It's like a 4 minutes off the front and then 9 minutes.
It's about 9 off the back. I'm looking at it. You're exactly right. But it's a good scene. That again, I think it underplays the power that this scene should have had. So it's basically Andor has his money back. He parts company with his partner that he escaped prison with, gives him a gun, gives him some money. Probably.
His partner's talking about we got to tell people.
We got to go our separate ways.
Yep. So we don't tell people.
Right, because that whole plot point is we got to let people know that they have like slave labor camps, like dark site, and somebody needs to do something about that shit. So after he bounces, that happens after that actually happens after Andor makes the call because the guy asks him if it's okay. So before Andor parts company with his buddy, he gets on the payphone because they still have him in this universe. Payphones, for you guys that don't know, are cell phones that don't fit in your pocket and are mounted to the wall, or also maybe to freestanding glass booths in certain major cities. 30 years ago? Superman in the 50s used to get changed in one of them before he used to just start doing the spinaroonie out in the road or just, basically pulling it open and taking off. But the call Andor makes is to the secure, which actually, that's another point of contention now. No, he was calling in like authentically because he called basically the scrapyard where the secret radio was hidden back on Ferrix. He gets a whole...
No. This was the transport guy.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Wasn't that the scrapyard?
No. You had the transport guy, and then you had the scrapyard. Different people.
That's right. He was the communications hub, and he was the guy Andor was working with to book Passage off in the beginning. Oh, you're right. My bad. I got it. That's right. Bix has Bix owns the scrapyard or the pawn shop or whatever that is, the metal shop, something like that.
Yeah, and then it's that other father-son team that was tortured first.
Oh yes,
had the radio.
Yes. Yep, that's right. So basically, it's his number 2 who's running the shop, right? He's taking the call in. There was a funny bit here where like Andor is basically trying to tell him no names. Like he's calling him to say, "Hey, let Marvin know I'm coming."
You called him Cass like 3 times.
He called him Cass like 3 times, and then I should freeze frame it and then just send you the clip. Where like after the 3rd time Andor tells him no names, he uses the guy's name in his next line of dialogue. Like not the other guy. Andor uses the other dude's first name. And I'm like, not exactly Spy King over here, bro. You just told him no fucking names. It's like, hey, bro. Oh, hey, Dave. And like, he just actually said it back to him. But Andor gets the bad news. And again, as a minor character on the show, the guy giving him the bad news sells the moment. He looks suitably somber. And he's like, I'm sorry. Marv is gone. Thought that was pretty good.
He kept trying to interrupt Andor as Andor was like, tell Marv I'm sorry and that I'm thinking about her. I've been thinking about her the whole time I've been gone. Sorry I've been gone.
That was kind of gut
punchy.
I'll admit that was a little gut punchy. But he gets the bad news and like Andor kind of signs off, has a quiet moment. He has the goodbye with his partner like we talked about because he's going to go off and expose the prisons and shit like that. And then the final bit is basically it's Andor looking off over the water, almost like the end of Rogue One. That kind of gave me flashes of that. Or like how he meets his end at the end of Rogue One. He's like on a beach looking at like, I think it's a sunrise in the background here. Probably. But
which is very symbolic of the rise of his new life.
Thank you. Just about to say that. Because I think at the end, actually, I think at the end of Rogue One, and I'd have to go back and double check, it may have been a sunset at the end of Rogue One, which is the
end of his life,
which would have been pretty deep. And I'll go. I might actually go watch that later. I'll call you just to see if they actually, if Gilroy was like, yeah, let me check my story notes from Rogue One. Oh, it was a sunset. Cool, it's dawn on this one. Maybe it was.
Yeah,
but
it's the dawn of the rebellion.
Yeah, and and hopefully in season 2 they get into that a lot. But let's not jump into season 2 just yet. This scene, the goodbye, the phone call, the Marv is dead part, it feels like they fired a blank on this for me. And I gotta tie, and this is where I'll tie it back finally to the beginning of the show for Marva's character, right? Killing her off screen after mentioning that she had been wounded snooping around the hotel seems like a missed opportunity for me. I think that in a show, and not that they could have adjusted this because it's not made week to week, it's all, filmed in advance, we get that. But in a show where somebody could have pointed out there could have been moments people legitimately found pacing to be slow, that they could have given her something to do with the end of her life. She might not have needed like the full-on hero, the hero blaze of glory thing, because she's an old lady. Fine. But there could have been something impactful she did besides die off screen. And I
did.
Dude, what? What did she do? Like, hold on.
Okay.
The entire episode, I was hoping for like those first few minutes. I'm like, dude, she's not dead. It's a fake funeral. They just needed to get her out of the house. No, wasn't that. Like, they show the cremation and the funeral and the procedure with the smelting down into the brick on the wall kind of thing. And I'm like,
dude banging on the iron.
Yeah, I'm like, so
in the tower.
Right. So I'm like, you set this character up as like the old school freedom fighter on world. They introduced the daughters of Ferrix as a plot device to do her funeral. Like, if this was Game of fucking Thrones, when you introduce a new faction, it means they kill someone. Or they move a bastard kid from point A to point B in safety. And like, there's meaning to what groups do. And that might just be my own personal read about what I hoped and what I expected to come out of it. But I'm not going to lie. I thought this character, I still love the character. Disappointing end. Very disappointing end to her.
All right, this is where I'm going to disagree with you.
This is what people show up for.
Because I believe she gave birth to new rebels like her. That's why you have Brasso. That's why you have Bits. That's why you have Cassian Andor. Is because of her. They are her legacy, and we're going to see that during the procession. This is my prediction. During the procession, they're going to dishonor her funeral, and this is going to rise.
Oh, you don't think it's done yet? Oh, see, no, I thought it was just done.
It's 2 days.
They did say that. Good pickup. They did say that. That's dude. You might have you might have just saved their bacon for me, bro.
In episode 3, we saw this, how they came together, banging on metal, sending out the alarm to everybody. Now they didn't get involved because Cassian isn't that important to them. Marva's important,
dude. Great.
That's why the daughter Ferrix came.
Great call. Interesting. So
her death will not be in vain because it gives birth to the first true uprising of the rebellion.
This is what I'm talking about, right? That moment, and see, for me, I want it because you know this. I'm a big fan of the heroes exit and like the Blaze of Glory shit. If she gets a quieter outro where it's like it's very Braveheart, and the thing that actually gets William Wallace to go and is they fucking desecrate the grave kind of thing. Okay, that's some shit. So if they F around with this funeral and unite Ferrix and Andor's there and Brasso's there and Bix is there and everything else, then that's fine. And I'll go back and I'll give them full marks for executing well on a character's death. I still would have liked to have seen her die with a human being by her side, because I think she rated that for me. Even if it wasn't going to be that like she pulls off like a suicide bombing at the hotel, or she saves Bix, or whatever it was going to be, because I thought that because Bix is at the hotel, like that's where she's in custody. So if Marva knows the tunnel's underground, maybe she gets some of the locals together, the daughters of the actual younger daughters of Ferrix. I don't know. I was kind of trying to spitball, like writer brain, that kind of stuff out. But the way you put 2 and 2 together on that, very subtly, if they're giving other people a reason to act at the same time because of the Imperials interfering with those funeral customs, good. And again, that would just lend itself to actual authentic, like that's what people would do.
And the information about how she got hurt is going to pay off because Brasso and Bix know that she was looking at the sewer to have the back door into the hotel.
That's a good point, because they actually said that out loud. That wouldn't even be speculatory. That's actually written
so
in.
they'll probably have to go through there
go
to rescue Bix.
Excellent, dude. Well done. Well done, guy. This is why we bring you on. Well fucking done. Because I'm about ready to, at the end of this episode, and you know what it was? There was the stuff at the beginning with her, and then the rail stuff at the end that just had me in stitches, because I thought it was so after he did the actual metallic countermeasures, everything after that I was like, this is stupid. Like it's jumped the shark for me in this moment. I'm obviously gonna watch the rest of the show. I obviously still really enjoyed it. The whole series has been really good. Didn't mind it, but I was like, if there's a weak episode for me, it's this one. It's 100% this episode. So I was getting a little nervous. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The finish line is right there. Like if you dive, Like you could break the tape with your chest and fall on it. That's how close to the end they are. You can't stumble here. Like Game of Thrones doesn't stumble the episode before the finale. I mean, I'm just talking about season 8, but that's neither here nor there. But you know what I mean? Like great shows stick landings. And you said that before in like the early part of us even watching this show. Like, will they stick landings? Like you've said that. You know, so I don't know. So besides the funeral, how do they get?
That's
we got the attack on the power station, or is that season 2? Like Krieger's assault, is that part of next episode, or is this whole thing on Ferrix?
We don't need to see that. We know Krieger's going to be set up and die.
That's right, because Guerrera said that like that's a rep. So they'll probably mention. We'll get that in a communique with the ISB that it happened.
Yeah.
I think they mention it again,
and
so we can see the fallout.
Find out what Bix actually said too, because they're like, then they won't have to worry about Atsis anymore. They think Atsis might be dead when they killed Krieger.
Interesting.
30 men plus Krieger.
Now the interesting thing would be for season 2 if Krieger lives, because he escapes the Imperial trap and then has to come figure out, why did you fucking send me in there, dickhead Luthen Rail? So that could be something they
can all play stupid.
I know, I'm just saying.
They play dumb.
I would just like to say, like, he could come back all suspicious. He could be captured, tortured, and escape. Who knows? I mean, he's a little too fat to escape, but whatever. Well, dude, a lot of big guys like me in this episode. It's a little weird. Like, Krieger's like some big fucking barrel-chested biker-looking motherfucker. You get the 2 fat aliens whose guts is all hanging. I'm like, dude, fucking get a shirt that fits, dude. Like, seriously, stop shopping at Baby Gap. No one's here for that. But you're right. Maybe that's just their culture. Maybe they're all supposed to be fatties. I don't know. Final thoughts on episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. Go.
So going into this episode, we knew it was going to be a down episode, especially after the jailbreak, the huge high, a lot of action. You're going to have a dip. You're going to have a dip because if you can't go up and then stay up and then stay up, all you're going to do is put you on a point where you're going to fall off a cliff and everything's just going to die out. So you had to have a down, and this was that down. This was that down curve. Reset everybody, get everyone set up, and then they moved all the pieces into place. They used what I said before, the Matt Griffin technique to bring all plot points to one point, which is Ferrix, which we will see in the next episode. I believe we'll have, in the next episode, we'll have all on Ferrix minus 1 or 2 scenes with Mon Mothma where she makes the phone call and she's like, let's set up a meet. An introduction. That's the word she's actually going to use, is introduction. But overall, I think this, if you go into this episode by itself, yes, it was a very slow, pretty dumb episode. But if you tie it into the little pieces that they've been dropping, the little breadcrumbs throughout the whole series, it all starts leading out the forest. And we're coming to the end. Overall, I believe the acting of David, the voice of
B2
3 emo,
B3 emo bot, the only droid on the show. Yep.
Yeah, nailed it for showing so much emotion in a bot. Which usually the only other bot that actually spoke common was 3CPO. Yep. All the rest had their beep, boop, 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 boop. And you don't really tell. You can tell based on their shades and a little bit. But this one spoke common, and you heard that it's voice breaking. Yep. It's a very emotional bot. Yep. Goes with the emo part. Then, of course, the showdown between Rail and Saw. 2 high-class actors doing what they do. And little stuff that just made you love the art. So I believe it was a good episode to serve its purpose to bring us to the season finale next week, Wednesday.
So you're saying definitely then served its purpose in terms of good setup for the finale, even if it, because you're not even saying that it felt rushed, or I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again. I'll watch it again and see if I change my mind. I think that I don't. If these other, this is what we were saying before we started recording for me. So my final thoughts of this. So I thought that this episode might have woken me up to a lot of wasted time along the way, or a lot of subplots that we didn't need at all. Like, let me ask you this: if we take Karn and the mom completely out of the show, have we lost anything here? Andor could have murdered those 2 guards. And and Dedra Meero could just have been assigned because some shit happened in an adjacent sector that her colleague wasn't effectively getting. Patagar could have just put her on the case. Like we maybe didn't need any of that. The stuff with his sister, abandoned. I mean, that has to be a season 2 thing unless they're going by fan feedback that like nobody, I mean, since the interest was low in the show anyway, like has he mentioned his sister since episode 2? No.
There's no way you would know that they mentioned the fan feedback.
Well, I mean,
they filmed it all.
No, but they're monitoring YouTube and social media now and seeing viewership now. They've probably done, I would imagine, some kind of test polling along the way after the show is dropped about what people are liking. Well, I mean, they're doing focus groups, I'm sure, about what people are liking and not liking. I mean, and even if they're just or just overall, they may be able just to track. There's a stat that they use on streaming where it's like the streaming companies know like the checkout time, like when people shut episodes off and when they restart viewing, how long into episodes they're viewing. I wonder if they're going to put maybe 2 and 2 together in their heads and think maybe people aren't interested in him being an orphan looking for a sister. Because if we remove that, have we lost anything in the show as we know it? Nope. So I think it
depends with Homeboy and his mom. We'll see in the finale. We'll have to wait to the finale and how they use him in the finale, because you need to keep him fresh in the viewer's mind. So showing him in what he goes through and how he thinks, and basically you see how he was raised.
True.
With the little interactions with his mom. I mean, they weren't that much. I mean, we're talking maybe 15 minutes of screen time throughout the whole series.
True. I mean, and we could in that last episode, if Andor stops by the house or something, slips in, maybe he finds the knick-knack that was left over from his sister, and it rekindles it as this is the only family I have left thing. I don't know. That might be an angle. I guess they could go with that in season 2. But specifically for this episode here, like when I look at Karn, the Velbets, I'm like, all right, so her like, did this show need her at all after the heist on Aldhani? Like, if they weren't going to use her to infiltrate the prison, which obviously they couldn't do because it's a men's prison or whatnot, but I mean, they could have written that in a way where it wasn't a men's prison and she had to go in because she was going to try and kill her. And, there could have been a story arc where then they had to work together with somebody to get out and yada yada. And then the rest of it could have largely gone down the same way with flooding out, with, jumping, swimming to freedom, shit like that. So they could have done that. But we didn't need her. Cinta hasn't done a damn thing in 5 episodes just being down there. So I feel like there was enough. We have all these characters that we're now trying to get to Ferrix to do something at the end. But I feel like if we had excised them along the way, we could have done more interesting things with the people that have done interesting stuff. Like we could have had more Miro. We could have had more Bix being interrogated, or a different characters being involved with interrogation. We could have got more from Guerrera and Luthen Rail. Like maybe there was an opportunity there to have another scene or two with them as they either collaborate or don't. Maybe there was an episode. Maybe they came to head at some point and had conflicting goals on a minor subplot. Who knows? There's anything they could have done. But this episode for me was kind of like, what was this all for? Like they've just ostensibly been waiting around now in position, most of them already on or near Ferrix, and we're just waiting for the finale. So for me, I know you didn't give it a number yet, but I can't give this any more than a 2.5, honestly. I understand, like I said before, on a technical craft level, like why and how these things are supposed to happen. The performances are good, the effects are good, like everything that happened at the end with the space battle looked great. Conceptually it was okay, follow through was okay, but the aftermath of thinking about it for more than 10 seconds for me just kind of like it flubs it a little bit, so I didn't get to enjoy it long term. So I guess I'm gonna rest my 2.5 on solid performances and a very lived in world. Everywhere they went it was populated, it had people, they were doing things that looked like real world stuff, with going to work, with planning for the funeral. And I think, like you said, outside of Guerrera and Luthen Rail, special nod to B3, EMO, and Brasso in that scene. It was very touching. You don't get a whole lot of that out of humans and droids, and I think it was cool to see that. And again, that gave Brasso not something important to do for like the whole larger story, but it gave him something important to do that just kind of fits with what like the kind of character he is. So that wasn't wasted time.
What he would do,
right? And what he would do, right? I mean, it's authentically, because we know he's a good guy. Like he screened Andor's escape, he screened Bix's escape from the ISP when he put himself in front of the guys in pursuit is, I'm being bounced around the crowd. I'm also 6'5" and 280, so good luck running through me. Like, you know what I mean? So I mean, that's who he is, like you said. So I mean, they all did well.
Yeah, middle linebacker.
Right. You could try to run through me, but you're gonna look stupid in front of your boys. I mean, that's how that's gonna happen. So, dude, if you had to give it a number, where would you throw down? And I remember you went perfect 5 last week. I thought I'd remind everybody. He's putting up 3. Okay. Not 8.
I'm going to stick right there. Okay. Right there.
That's a solid 3.
Dead center.
Dead center. All right, so your score's coming in a little under what the words and the praise said. I thought I'd point that out. But it's fair. I mean, it's not that it's an unfair score.
I mean, there were technical mistakes, and like you said, there are some plot holes that are there. Like, homeboys just happen to be there fishing.
No, see, not a plot hole, just more like a credibility speed bump. Because it worked.
Or it's like you said, a Mary Sue moment.
It's like you said, dude. It's a trope in the escape movie. We had the bank heist tropes, we had the prison escape tropes, and this is one of them where it's like it's like what was the movie with Eddie Murphy where he was like he was chained at the ankle to the other guy that they did the prison escape. It was set in like the deep south in the 30s.
Life.
It was yeah, exactly. It's like very old school, very chain gang where it's like we're on the run together, we got to break the chain, then we got to bum a ride, but it's like there's a lot of that stuff adds up and makes sense in how it's done, but like I don't know. Like again, we knew would it have been better in that scene if Andor wanted to kill the guy to get the ship, but the other guy didn't want to, but because we know Andor is kind of a scumbag anyway, and he's not above killing bystanders or people that are in on it with him, like would that have been a better point of character development than, hey, we got shot with the goo gun, and then the only reason we escaped is because these guys decided to, not because of anything we said, because they were good either way. You know what I mean? Like they were like, okay, well, we could turn you in for the bounty, or no, fuck those Imperial guys. They fucked up all our water. Okay, we're gonna cut you out, and we're gonna give you a ride. Like it was asking a little bit much. So, all right, dude, I think that's about it on Andor episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. Guys, we appreciate you watching through. We enjoyed the show despite my vents this particular episode with the beginning and the end. What did you guys think? Comment below. Anybody have any good theories for how this is going to wrap up? Personally, I think King Z is on point with the disruption of funeral issue going to be the thing that pops off some rebellion on Ferrix. I think that could be pretty cool. It'll probably be that in tandem with them, like you said, Spring and Bix. You hopefully using the tunnel that Marva discovered while she got hurt. And I'll be honest with you, if they don't follow through on that, if that was just some random old lady thing she was doing, and then they put the old lady to bed and gave her meds, and then she died the way she did, I'm be pissed. And and now that I think about it, I'm getting ramped up. I think that it's going to be a non-issue. They'll get Bix out some other way when the funeral gets all disrupted or some shit that'll involve stealing uniforms and infiltrating and blah blah blah. But guys,
they've already done the stealing uniforms.
Yeah, dude, but
do something new.
I hope so. But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys.
It could be just a straight overrun.
Dude, hopefully. I mean, dude, they got numbers.
The ants versus the grasshoppers. Yeah. There's more of us than them.
Dude, they have numbers, but the Imperials also have fortified positions with heavy blasters out them front doors that will require some creative intervention.
Plenty of time.
Yep, dude. So hopefully. But we'll see how that goes, guys. Dude, anything going on? Or are you about ready to check out and get some rack time? You done?
Yeah, I'm probably going to warm me up some food and head to bed. Dude. I got to get up and do it all over again tomorrow.
Yeah, dude, I think I got some DMZ ahead of me. Maybe finish a contract or two before I rinse, repeat, and go back to work. Short week for me this week, thank God. Dude, we have half Wednesday and then Thursday, Friday off for the holiday, bro. Pretty slapping.
I think I only have Thursday off. Dude. It's my only day off I have from when I started working again, November 5th. Yeah, November 5th until the end of January. The only day off I have is Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Dude, that's disgusting.
Only 2 days off.
Dude, good luck with that. Dude, if you find some free time on Thanksgiving and you want to drive 18 hours out to my mom and dad, you're more than welcome to join us. Of course, family will be there. They'd like to see you. I'll let them know you said hi, all that good stuff. But that's going to do it for me too, guys. You can check me on the socials at Winter Wolf's Den, Twitter and the Instagram coming soon, and then of course Winter Wolf's Den here on YouTube. But until next time, guys, for King Z, this is Winter Wolf. We're out.